Picture this. You wake up one day to find out the economy is in shambles.
Have mortgage rates now so they're about to crash the economy, everyone. The interest rates in America are now surging to a point where a massive economic and housing crash is all but inevitable. We have mortgage rates now almost at 7.4%, and we have the 10-year treasury yield at almost 4.3%. And these are levels that are constricting economic activity and causing a massive collapse in buyer demand across the housing market. Mortgage applications to buy a house, they're now down at the lowest level since 1995. You know what?
And your hard-earned money is worth a fraction of what it used to be.
Yes, good morning, Carl and Sarah. And do look at interest rates. They're moving up a bit. Stocks moving down a bit. Maybe here's the reason why. University of Michigan sentiment at 63, a disappointment. Weakest level since May. And one-year inflation went from a 3.2, lowest since March of 21, to the highest since May of this year at 3.8%. And these are wild numbers. Higher inflation, weaker confidence, and this could be the stencil to pay attention to as prices remain sticky and growth becomes more questionable, at least based on some of these qualitative surveys.
Scary thought, right? Unfortunately, that's the reality we're facing as per JP Morgan. This isn't just another doom and gloom prediction. The warning issued by JP Morgan is based on solid facts, figures, and trends that simply can't be ignored. And trust us, you don't want to ignore them. Recently, the CEO of the largest bank in the US commented on several global events that could significantly affect our food and energy markets, as well as how countries engaged with one another. He pointed specifically to the ongoing conflicts in different countries throughout the world.
Some pretty incredible news coming out in the past 24 hours. Clarification on attacks on U.S. soil to our water systems, electrical grids, our infrastructure. This is the focus, they're saying, of Hamas and other terrorist groups that would like to attack the U.S. Now, take a look. As I shared with you, 48 hours ago, this came out on Tuesday, the FBI says terrorism threat hits a whole other level after Hamas attacks.
These events have the potential to seriously shake things up in the world. To put it simply, it's a big deal. JP Morgan just released its third quarter report. And on paper, it's looking pretty good, despite the fact that CEO Jamie Dimon is voicing some concerns about the economy.
But I suspect that they may not be done. I think there's a chance that inflation is just a little stickier than people think.
The bank's profits rose by a whopping 35%, lending at a cool $13.15 billion. It seems like rising interest rates came through for them. Revenues increased from $32.7 billion last year to just under $39.9 billion. While everything might be looking rosy right now, Dimon is still keeping a close eye on things. He mentioned that both consumers and businesses in the United States are doing pretty well at the moment, but that people are spending a little less from their savings accounts, and this makes him a little bit uneasy.
Time for our chart of the day. The U.S. personal savings rate is the percentage of disposable personal income, or what's left after a person has paid their taxes and spent money. Now, according to the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, the U.S. personal savings rate hit a historical low of 2.7%.
So JP Morgan is making sure they're prepared for whatever the future may hold. They're doing everything they can to keep bringing in solid profits for their clients. No matter what happens in the world, ongoing conflicts in different regions around the world have significant implications for global politics and economics. These situations have raised questions about future developments. Recent events in the Middle East have led to heightened tensions, potentially resulting in substantial changes in how countries in that region interact with one another. But what does this mean for us common people? Well, it's hard to say for sure, but it could impact the prices we pay for food, energy, and housing. It could also lead to changes in the way we trade with other countries around the world. While we may not have control over global events, it's certainly valuable to stay informed and aware of what is unfolding on the global stage. And before I reveal the haunting stats, please take a few seconds to help me out and hit the like and subscribe button if you're enjoying the video so far. It's fuel for the algorithm that helps support this channel, so thank you. Now, back to what I was saying. According to Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, we're facing one of the riskiest periods the world has seen in years. And he said this just as the bank was announcing its latest earnings report. In case you weren't sure what that means, it's basically a way for the company to let investors know how it's doing financially. But back to the real meat of the statement. Why does Jamie Dimon think the world is in such a precarious position right now? One significant concern is inflation, which occurs when prices for goods and services increase. Over time, this means that your money won't be able to buy as much as it used to because the value of that money has decreased. According to Dimon, we are seeing signs of inflation all around us, from rising costs of raw materials to increasing wages and supply chain disruptions. These factors can contribute to higher prices for consumers, which could lead to a decrease in purchasing power. But why should we trust what JP Morgan has to say? After all, they are a bank with their best interest at heart, right? Well, that may be true, but it's also important to understand that JP Morgan Chase is one of the world's largest and most influential financial institutions. They have access to vast amounts of data and resources, which gives them a unique perspective on global economic conditions. So when they issue a warning like this, it's worth noting that the current sky-high mortgage rates are having a devastating effect on the housing market.
The bad news, the economy still sucks, particularly if you're looking to buy a home.
That is true. Right now, potential home buyers are facing a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage that's inching closer and closer to 8%. But the rates have been creeping up for so long that the impact is now creeping up on home builders.
In fact, they're so high, they're actually stifling any kind of activity in the market. And if you don't believe me, just look at the numbers. Mortgage applications to buy a house have plummeted by a whopping 50% from their peak during the pandemic. That's right, folks. We're currently experiencing the lowest levels of home buyer demand since all the way back to 1995. Now, we know what you're thinking. Surely there must be other factors at play here too, right? Well, you're not wrong. In addition to the sky-high mortgage rates, home prices have also been skyrocketing. And when you adjust for inflation, home prices are actually at their highest levels on record. And while they've come down slightly from their peak in the notorious 2006 bubble, they're still around 90% above the long-term average for inflation-adjusted prices. So here's something that's been on my mind lately. What's really causing the slowdown in the housing market these days? I mean, people are not buying houses simply because they're too expensive. Or is it also because mortgage rates are just unreasonably high? Home prices have definitely surged in recent years, which is definitely something that can discourage potential home buyers. And with low inventory, there's fierce competition for the houses that are on the market, which continues to drive up prices even further. We also can't ignore the fact that mortgage rates are currently higher than they've been in several years. The interest rates on home loans have been steadily rising, which can increase the monthly payments for homeowners and make it much harder to qualify for a mortgage in the first place. If you're wondering why you're still not seeing any reduction in mortgage and interest rates, it might be because of the current state of our government's finances right now. We are running a whopping 1.8 trillion deficit, approaching a record outside of the pandemic. That means we're borrowing a ton of money to just keep things floating. So why is the government still borrowing so much money.
Nearly $33 trillion.
The thing that we refer to as the national debt is really nothing more than an accounting record.
The national debt increased by nearly 90% since the beginning of the pandemic.
Right? You'll hear people talk about the national debt burdening future generations. It ends up scaring people because you're thinking that the federal government's budget works like a household budget, and that if the government is borrowing and taking on debt, that somehow it's going to find itself in a situation somewhere down the road where it can no longer afford to pay the bills. Not true. The government's budget doesn't work anything like a household budget.
The answer lies in what's called a debt spiral. Basically, the more money that we borrow, the more interest we have to pay on the amount borrowed. And that means that we have to take out even more debt just to keep up with the interest payments. It's like one of those crazy credit card bills you can't pay off no matter how much you throw at it. JP Morgan's CEO is also really concerned about the national debt, which is getting pretty darn huge. And get this, he says we're dealing with the largest fiscal deficits ever. Did you know that the interest on the national debt has nearly doubled over the past 3 years? Yikes. It's now up to a staggering $910 billion. And get this, almost 15% of the U.S. budget is spent solely on interest costs. Crazy, right? To put that into perspective, that means that 15% of your hard-earned tax dollars are just going towards paying off the debt's interest. And if that wasn't enough, a whopping 45% of the U.S. budget is allocated to social transfer spending like Social Security and Medicare. So in total, a whopping 60% of the budget is spent on non-negotiable items that will only increase due to higher interest rates and the aging U.S. population. So what does this all mean? Unfortunately, it means there's no easy solution to the ever-growing debt levels that we're facing. And it's why people like Jamie Dimon are warning that we are in dangerous times right now.
Talking about the impact that the war in the Middle East is going to have on the markets, on the economy. Look, nothing good is going to come of this in the short run.
If you're like me, you might ask yourself, why is this such a big deal? Well, here's the thing. Dimon thinks these high deficits and debts are going to lead to some pretty serious consequences, like inflation and high interest rates. And trust me, nobody wants to deal with that. Plus, on top of all that, Dimon's got some concerns about the Federal Reserve and what they're up to. Apparently, they're trying to reduce their bond holdings through something called quantitative tightening. Basically, what this means is that there's going to be less money floating around in the economy, especially because there are all kinds of regulations in place that are making it hard for people to do things like market making. And that can be a pretty big problem. From what I hear, JP Morgan has been dropping some hints to clients that interest rates maybe won't just stay up, but that they could go up even higher. Apparently, the warning goes beyond the possibility of rates staying at high levels, but also indicates that they could increase significantly from here. This could mean serious trouble for the housing market, as higher interest rates could lead to an even more significant fall in home buyer and mortgage demand. As it stands, the housing market is already in a pretty dire situation, and many people in the industry are starting to get worried. In fact, there are several associations, including the National Association of Realtors, the Mortgage Bankers Association, and the National Association of Home Builders, that have gone ahead and sent a letter to the Federal Reserve and its chairman, Jerome Powell. The letter warns of potential risks involved in raising interest rates, particularly concerning the current state of the housing industry. Essentially, these groups are urging Powell to reconsider the interest rate hike or risk the possibility of a significant economic hard landing. In the real estate sector, all in all, it's clear these warning signs are generating serious concern among those in the housing industry. And it remains to be seen what actions will be taken to mitigate this situation. Thanks for watching, and please make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to leave a comment down below, letting me know the strategy that you think can work in this dire situation. Check out my next video because I suspect you will love it a lot. And until next time, peace.
Hello, hey Tracy with the good heels on. Let me tell you about my day, it won't be real long. Woke up to a Red Bull before I wash my face. I'm gonna need all the energy if I'ma see this day. Work hard, play hard, work hard, repeat. Free soul, repetition, so hard for me. I focus on payoff and often that don't come round. And I can't be myself too often, I feel dumbed down. Starting to recall more frequent daydreaming now. Was all I won't get is out of town. But I'm here for now. As soon as I get off, I'm gon' kick it with all the homies. My one piece of relief, I be needing the ones that know me for real. I used to love Saturdays, them was my